from my Kannadiga. Yeah, oh, that needs to be recorded. I enjoy a lot of goodies from my Kannadiga friends today. So it's a happy, happy day for me. And wonderful to be with all of you, really. So today we are meeting to get a little bit of understanding of, I think, in my personal perspective, the most difficult domain of human existence, and that is the domain of emotions, the emotional domain. And why I say it is, the most difficult, because it is intangible. It's very difficult to quantify it, to measure it, to define it in very easily understandable terms, because its very nature is that it's multi-layered. And I think none of the existing languages have really found words to adequately describe what we go through as emotions, what we all go through as emotions. So anyway, be that as it may, let's just try to go about our lives by trying to get a little bit of better understanding of that than we may have already. So one thing to start off with is, let's try to understand the signs of emotions. What is the science behind it? Where is it in our body? Where are emotions in our body? Where do they come from, and why do they come in so many different hues and colors and levels of intensity? So primarily, emotions, unlike what poets and novelists have led us to believe, doesn't have much to do with the heart. It has much more to do with the glandular system. So commonly known as the HPA axis, the hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal, these are the glands, they are the ones that release hormones. And it is the presence of these hormones in our body, in our blood system, that moderates stress, regulates metabolism. Very, very significant, especially for ASD. Immune functions, again, and emotions. So, for example, we face situations that cause certain responses in us. These situations can be external, from the environment most of the time. They can also be internal. Our memory is a very big part of the internal trigger. And physiologically, the body, whatever the body is going through internally, is also a big part of this internal trigger. So let's say we face a situation externally that causes us stress. What does the body do? The glands release hormones to help the internal systems fight out this situation. If that's not done, our body will just succumb, our systems will just cease, and we will not be there anymore, so to speak. The adrenal gland releases, it's a whole process. I'm just going to cut it very short. So ultimately, we end up with this hormone called cortisol. And science has proved beyond, at least currently, beyond doubt, that the presence of certain levels of cortisol in the brain impact the neurons in such a way that they shrivel up. The touch-me-not flowers, they just curl up like that. The dendrites of the neurons. And it is the dendrites of the neurons that move around, that get stimulated by, triggered by inputs from the environment. And then they meet and synapses occur and learning happens and all of that happens. Like a trillion things are happening in the brain all the time. But when levels of cortisol reach a certain amount in the brain, the dendrites just shrivel up. And then nothing can happen. If our neurons are inactive, if the dendrites are not meeting and not talking to each other, and the synapse is not happening, no learning is happening. So when we get to the questions, I think we all need to remember this. And this is why we cannot reach our child when he or she is in the middle of this storm. You know, the dendrites are shriveled up. There is an awful level of cortisol in the system. So we need to remember that. So then, and then we have moments of pleasure, that which we identify as pleasure, happiness, joy, all those synonyms. And there is oxytocin in the system. And there is endorphin release. These are known as the happy hormones. And they give the brain the message that it's good. This is a situation that is nice, it's pleasant, it's desirable. And the brain orders the muscles in a way that the smile comes, the grin comes, the laughter comes, and there is a sense of relief. So it's hormones are the ones that drive the emotional system that we have in our bodies. And then, of course, one could go on, and I would request all of us, me, of course, very much included, to go to credible sources and really read up on the limbic system. That is all the major glands that are responsible for hormones that drive our emotions. And then we see the manifestations in behavior. We have the amygdala. The amygdala is really important because it is the primitive one that releases the hormones when we face fear, when we face threat, stress. The hippocampus to do with the memories. Like I said, it's the memories that is the internal trigger. Sometimes, lots of times, I am working with a child, or a parent talks to me and says, I just don't know what happened, ma'am. This kid just suddenly went up something. And if we are very sure that it wasn't the external environment, then it has to be internal. There has to be a reason for the child to go into a sense of discomfort, huge discomfort. It just doesn't happen randomly. It doesn't happen without reason. That's the bottom line. It always, always has a context. And it is our deficit that we are not able to put our fingers on this context all the time, but the context is there. The hypothalamus, the seat of release of hormones. So the limbic system, very important for all parents to understand when they're nurturing their children, becomes that much more significant for a parent nurturing a child who has atypical characteristics, symptoms, whatever. So having said that much, I would request any of you, if you already have some thoughts in mind, some questions that are, coming to mind, to just kind of, to note them down maybe, so that you kind of keep track of them. And we will now be, unless somebody has
Champaji, there's one question in the chat. Do you want to take it? Priya has asked, do kids on the spectrum have generally high levels of cortisol even in normal state compared to NTs?
It can be so thought, because people on the spectrum have been seen to have higher levels of anxiety as compared to many other systems in other individuals. Now, the anxiety and the stress is what? It's a vicious cycle. The more cortisol, the more anxiety levels. So yes, it is quite possible that many of us who are, on the spectrum are actually grappling with higher levels of cortisol all the time. It's quite possible. Yes. So, Bindu, if there is nothing that anybody here would like to kind of pitch in with, at this
Yeah,
point of time?
I will start with the questions.
We'll start with the questions. And thank you so much, Bindu. You are a lifesaver. I would never be able to manage all that. And so we will go in order and kind of give you a heads up. Questions 1 and 2 very related. So I'm going to kind of, address them together. If you could just read out those 2 questions. And for all members here who may not have been able to put in their questions or may not have, I can never think of questions when I'm asked to. I also have this problem with on demand, I cannot. So if there are things that come to mind now, please make a note of it quickly, and then we will come to it once we have kind of gone through the questions that are already documented. Yeah, Bindu, let's go. Sriram has something important to ask. Please give him the attention that he deserves. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first set of questions are on self-regulation. We got a majority of questions on this. So I have actually categorized them as per the topic, and some of them have mentioned the age also, which is helpful. So
Yes.
the first question is, if I need to teach self-regulation for the first time, how shall I start? What are the prerequisite skills for the child to be able to learn self-regulation? This is from a child, a parent of a child of age 9.
And the second question? Also?
Yeah, second question is how to teach children to self-regulate when they're in distress or overwhelmed.
That's from a parent of a younger child.
Yeah, age 9, yes.
Yeah, all right. So, all right. So just to take these 2 together, they're very interconnected. They're almost the same question, actually. We go back to the fact that the manifestation of behaviors always has a context. So when we are observing behaviors that display dysregulation of sorts, then there has been something in the environment or in the internal environment, right, that has caused the discomfort, and the child is conveying that to us. Just to go back to something maybe we discussed last time, or even in the messages, that behavior is primarily 3 things. Behavior is communication, behavior is response, and behavior is also a tool for regulation. The problem arises when this behavior is seen as something that is not accepted by society, by us, when it discomforts us. And that's the time we feel very urgently, we need to control or change the behavior. Now, regulation. Okay. We have all experienced dysregulation at some point of time. The boss says something, the mother-in-law says something, the spouse says something, the neighbor does something. Something happens, we read the newspapers, we see the news, and we just can't take it. We lose it, so to speak. What do we do when we lose it? There are many times when we give in to that, right? We strike out, we scream, we yell, we use bad words, we get up and go away. A few things that we don't do is drink water or count from 1 to 100. We don't do that. I have no clue where this has come from. If I'm not able to count from 1 to 100 when I feel like going and squeezing the life out of somebody, how can I expect my child to be doing it when he or she is extremely uncomfortable with something? So one way that has worked for me and my children and myself when I'm highly dysregulated about something is to acknowledge that something is wrong somewhere. With myself, I know what is wrong where. And then I acknowledge my limitations in addressing that. And thus I acknowledge my right to feel terrible. Angry, sad, upset, frustrated, depressed, jealous. A whole plethora of emotions that we all club under anger. It's not anger most of the time. So validate, definitely, and avoid. So when we talk of triggers, external and internal, as we parent our child, we come to know of triggers. Make a list, keep it in front of you all the time so that you don't forget. Anticipate the triggers, the known triggers, and avoid them. It is of no use to subject your child to a trigger that is avoidable, but which will lead to higher levels of adrenaline, cortisol, and really put his system out of whack. His heart's going to be working overtime. His spleen is going to be working overtime. Her liver is going to be working overtime. For what? So avoid. So you have to be extremely, extremely alert about what triggers your child. And do not question the trigger. I have had parents say, but ma'am, this is nothing. Nothing to you. We are talking of a different individual here. We are not talking about you. You have come and told me, ma'am, my child is on the spectrum, or my child has ID, or my child has CP, and my child is whatever, neurodiverse, or whatever. So you have said it that your child is different. Now, why is it difficult for you to keep in mind that difference? So the whistle of the cooker is nothing to you, but it can mean absolute agony to somebody else. So, well, stop cooking in the cooker, I would say. It's your child, man. Change your cooking methodology. Your child is definitely more precious than cooking in the cooker. The next thing is when we come to children who have serious deficits in communication abilities, whether spoken or any other way. Now, imagine yourself like desperately trying to make the world around you understand what is happening, and you just can't get through. You're going to feel like that's what your kid feels like almost all the time. Try doing it, like, it's just the most awful, terrible state to be in. So acknowledge that to your child. He's your baby. Tell her that, Babu, I'm just trying, and Amma, Appa, Mama, whatever you call yourselves, are don't seem to be able to get it. But you know what? I'm going to keep trying. And you will get impatient and upset with me because I'm not getting it, but someday I'm going to get it. And believe me, parents, I have had my children who have shown immense ability to be patient with me. I cannot believe it sometimes. And I sit down and write in my diary in the night, said, how did that child have that patience with me? I was such a fool. It was so evident, and I didn't get it for 2 hours, 3 hours. And then when I got it, the relief I see in those eyes. And then I say, oh, God, thank you so much. Sometimes they may not be patient. They have a right to be impatient with you. So we need to acknowledge all the time. And now we come to our real life. I mean, our children have to live in this world the way it is. There will be cooker whistles going off in the next door or whatever it is, or anything else. People will wear yellow shirts. I had a kid who was like, just not able to take yellow shirts, yellow dresses. So there's all kinds. So it will happen. So what do we do to empower them? Is a very phased out, graded exposure to the trigger with a prep. With a prep, as in telling the child that, I think I've observed that this like really gets you out, like it worries the hell out of you, you're upset. Yeah, but it's there all around us. So maybe just, one count and then we take it away. So graded exposure, prepare, say sorry. I don't know why I'm doing this to you, but I just feel that someday, somewhere you will see this. And if you knew what it was, and if you knew that it's difficult to tolerate, but it's something that will finish, that will get over, then maybe you will have like lesser discomfort. So we'll just try these different things. So very, very graded. So what you all need, what we all need, is infinite patience. Very tough. Managing a job, managing your roles as a wife, mother, daughter-in-law, or, for the fathers to be the father, the son-in-law, the son, a sibling, office roles. I know it's like really a very, very tall order. But you know what? It's the bottom line. There is no way around it. You cannot circumvent that. It's like the oxygen in the air. Like we can have a lot of air around us and no oxygen, we won't live. So we can do everything. We can have extreme, immense knowledge about it. We can know things, we write, we do, but we don't have patience. Nothing will work. You just have to wait it out. And you also have to acknowledge to yourself that there are no guarantees. This is a human being. They have their rights to accept some facilitation and reject some. You know, the way you accepted and rejected what was taught to you in schools by your teachers, so much of it has been rejected by you, by all of us. We just chose what we want and we moved forward with that. Our children have the same right. So to answer the parents, self-regulation is tough for the best of us. Do not have expectations of performance from your children at all. There's no time frame. Avoid triggers, prepare by bringing in phased and graded exposure. Be patient, be patient, be patient, be patient. Assure your child you will keep trying. And offer as wide a range of possibilities from the very beginning. I mean, many of us here know that I have this kind of an approach that is not a therapy approach. Therapy is a clinical approach. It is more about curing and healing. I mean, broadly speaking, not all therapists, not all therapy fall under it. But it's just a kind of a broad generalization. I'm being unfair to many here, many in the field, I know that, but I'm also scared on behalf of our children. There's a video that's gone viral very recently of this teacher in Noida beating up a child on the spectrum, and very disturbing. Anyway, so there's no time frame, and so because some of our brains really are, some of our brains, okay, who's that? It's okay, it's okay. We feel comfortable with patterns, with predictability. But the thing is that if we set very narrow patterns and then we want to suddenly broaden it, it's not fair. So right from the beginning, there have to be these slashes, or possibilities for your child. You're offering something to your child in a particular way. Your child deserves to be told that the same thing has many other ways in the world. And we may look at some other ways over a period of time, and then you get to pick and choose. That's your right. But it's also your right to know that addition need not be done vertically. It need not be only done with stuff, with manipulatives. It's just you can be roaming around and doing things in your mind. There is like these many. So offer the possibilities to everything. We eat with hands or we eat with a spoon. There are people around the world who do eat with chopsticks or with this. Show them videos. Those are eating habits. People eat different things. It's choices. Choice is something that our children will not know. No child, typical, atypical, blah, blah, whatever. Choices are for us to bring to them. And choices moderate regulation. Because There is a cognitive awareness that there are other ways. And that helps us to regulate. Okay, we move on to question 3.
Third question is, what needs to be done to help the child fall back on calming techniques when upset? Though the child is aware of it, they don't follow it when distressed.
First thing, awareness doesn't necessarily moderate behavior. Awareness about, sexual awareness classes and all was started in the US like way back. We still have teenage pregnancies in America. So firstly, awareness is totally cognitive, and in many minds, it does not relate to life. It is just a piece of information stored away. 5 years, it's a baby we're talking about. Too young. Be patient. Like we said just a little while back, you have to wait for the storm to pass. Because at the height of dysregulation, that's why your better understanding of the limbic system will help you understand what's going on inside the body. There is a mad cocktail of hormones at that time. None of us have the power to control that. We have to wait for the body to flush out the unnecessary hormones that have been released. And remember, it is actually protecting your child. Without those hormones, most of his internal or her internal systems would seize and cause death. It is those hormones in some way or the other that is keeping life going. So we have to wait for the storm to pass. While the storm is on, we have to find our own particular ways of keeping our child safe while not imposing. If your child is extremely tactile preference, he loves to be held, hold him close. If they hate personal touch, stay away. Auditory sensitivities, if they like to be spoken to, talk to them in a natural, normal tone. Acknowledge, validate, something has gone wrong, something is upset. Maybe it's me. I'm trying to get it. If they don't like sound naturally, don't talk to them at that time. You're just adding to the storm. So, mostly that. And you have to empower yourselves to not associate shame, embarrassment, or anything of that kind in connection with your child feeling uncomfortable and displaying that discomfort. Nothing is more important than your child. You're in the middle of somewhere, other people are getting upset. Remove your child, get up and go away. So, regulation again and again, we'll come back to the same thing, is that it's so tough. When your child is dysregulated and you are exhausted physically and emotionally, the storm has passed over, there is calm. Somehow you're all breathing now. Pat yourself on the back that the storm is over, because that's a very big thing in itself, Sometimes I've had children where the storm has raged for hours. Remember the pattern preferences in many ADHD individuals, where they latch on to the pattern and the brain is unable to remove itself. So the trigger is gone, the environment has changed, but the dysregulation pattern has not been able to unhook itself from the brain. The brain is constantly being triggered to produce those same hormones which are causing the behavior now. There is no way but to let the storm pass, the calm prevail. And we use this for both the parent and the child when we refer to it in calmer moments. Something happened at that time. If it's a known trigger, Said, oh, I'm so sorry I missed that out. I'm going to be more careful next time. I know you don't like holding hands, and I grabbed your hand and that's just set you off. Or whatever. Unknown triggers, collaborate with your child. I have no clue, I'm just not able to get it. Let's try and find out some way or the other. So that's what you do when the storm hits. The fourth question.
Yeah. So the child starts crying a lot when she sees someone else crying. How to work on this?
That's the mirror neuron working. It is because of mirror neurons in our brain system that we learn to imitate. A huge percentage of our learning comes through copying and imitating all through life, but extremely significant in the earlier years. It's almost all is copying and imitating. So the mirror neurons are extremely active in the earlier years of life. And that is what is happening to your baby. You need to remove from the trigger. Someone cries, just pick up your baby and go away from there. And talk about it. That, and I know that we feel like crying. Talk in the plural. Do not isolate your child. Whether you are a parent or a professional, do not isolate your children by using you all the time. It's we. Because in some form, some way or the other, we are all in this game. We have no right to feel superior and better because we don't flap our heads and scream out. We do other things that we are very capable of hiding, but we do it all the time. So let's be on the same platform. So please use we, be collaborative, be on the team, and say we cry when we see somebody else crying, and that is because there's a mirror neuron in our brain. Presume competence. The jargon may not be what's to be used, but your child is going to get it. That there is something natural and normal about this. It's not that I am like a freak. Yeah, we cry because there are these melanoma, we see others doing things and we feel like doing the same thing. But like crying is kind of a little uncomfortable. So let's try other experiences today. Let's do something else. You could, if it's a very young child, you could always use very subtle and gentle diversion. If you have a list of things that your child is extremely comfortable with and likes to engage with, have them ready at all times as much as possible, and immediately offer the child, let's do this, let's go to that corner and do this, and let's think of other things. So gentle diversion, talking about it, normalizing it, putting the we to it, we are all in it, and removing from the trigger. Never, never, never expose your child to a known trigger. There is absolutely no question of, ma'am, at some point of time, he will have to learn. Okay, let's wait for that point of time. But at this point of time, it triggers your kid. Please do not expose suddenly, all of a sudden. It's not worth it. The increased heart rate, the entire limbic system out of whack, it's not worth it. So let's think of ways and means of how my kid is going to live for the rest of her life if she never learns that. It's okay. Ma'am, my kid will not eat mangoes. So what? So it's that kind of a thing. Let's not get carried away by the musts and the shoulds. There are no musts and shoulds. It's all very individualistic. So that is how we help out this little baby. And number 5.
Number 5 is my son is diagnosed with focal seizure and is on AEDs. He has developmental delays and is processing slow. Now he does a lot of self-talk. So how to regulate it? This is a parent of child age 7.
7, yes. Okay. First, do not curb the self-talk. Do not try to stop it. It is not an abnormal thing to do. We all self-talk. Thought is talk. How do you think? In words, right? Inside your heads. just not speaking them out loud. So do not curb self-talk, because many a times it's a tool for self-regulation. It's a tool that is used by a mind that has been bombarded with inputs to try and make sense of what has happened. My son Ankush is 30, he's married. He is an individual with intellectual disabilities. IQ is in the mid-50s, something, whatever. My husband is his coach and mentor. He's a golfer. He's represented India, whatever. Now, when Bipra tells him something about his game, it depends on what was told to him, how familiar or unfamiliar it was, how accepting or, he was like against that. He talks for either minutes or hours or days, because he needs to hear it from his own voice. He goes over, iterates it, and he's trying to make sense of it. And he's learned so much from that. Suddenly there's an epiphany. What was told and expected to be understood simultaneously, I'm saying things to you and my expectation is all of you are getting it immediately. But that's not how all minds work. Absolutely not. So do not curb the self-talk. Observe and see if it is established that in your child, it is a tool of self-regulation. That will be a massive support for him all his life, like it is for Ankush, for my son. And overall, when you're talking to him, remember he's on medication that is meant to slow down his brain on top of everything else, but an evil necessity because of the epilepsy. So talk less. By that, I don't mean that you keep mum with your child, you talk, but the quantity of words, the number, the speed, and everything becomes a little regulated from your end. Break down things that you want to convey to your child, small little pieces at a time. Go back to it. Reiterative, repetition. Remember how the brain works. Our neurons connect, synapses happen when some new input comes. And then if that new input is not repeated, the synapse that happened and started laying a neural path just fades off. So be reiterative, not in a boring, awful lecture method, but general, relating, connecting, talking. Remember we did that? Oh, I spoke about this earlier. Oh my God, we've seen this earlier. Build those connections. Very important. Remove expectation of performance. That is a personal plea from the heart, because it is what ruins it for many children. We don't need to see the learning, actually. We need to provide the learning. The learning will happen because that's how our brains are made. There's plasticity. The brain is learning, believe me, whether you like it or not. Parents say, ma'am, how's my kid picked up all these awful words? Well, we don't use them at home. Fine. But they're there in the air. It's like the virus. You pick it up. So remove expectation of performances. Create associations, especially with epilepsy. It causes problems in the hippocampus. Memory gets impacted. Mostly long-term memory, with short-term memory can in various cases. So, it's very difficult for that child to relate to everything every day, because it is possible that most of the time that child is finding everything new every day. The memory has not retained the associations. So we have to be the external memory for many of our children. And say, that's the shirt you wore to Champa ma'am's birthday party. See, look at the picture. And you loved it. And they all said you looked so handsome in it. So today we have Bindu Andi's party. Let's wear that shirt. So you connect, you relate. The colors come in, the experience come in, the pleasurable experience memory. It's an internal trigger for endorphins and oxytocin. your heart is at peace, your baby is healthy for those few seconds. And it is the health of those few seconds of the entire system that holds on and that helps the storms when they happen. So we have to, it's like the oxygen for us. We have to have those endorphin moments for ourselves and for our children. They are a lifeline for all of us. So create experiences, refer to early experiences as much as possible, and understand what the seizures are all about. Understand the impact of the medication that your child is taking. We read all this, like side effects and all, but they are jargon for us. But for the person, it's life, it's impacting life. So understand more and more and more, and do not curb the self-talk. It's quite interesting to see them mumbling to themselves. Okay.
Ma'am, the next question is, my child has picked up some co-regulation and self-regulation and needs further improvement on that. Can't tell if she feels any empathy or motivation. This is a person aged 18 years.
Yes. All right. So coming to empathy, motivation, it's actually very difficult to gauge, whether somebody has it or not. Because they are completely intangible, completely impossible to really define. And even when we see people being, supportive or doing the right thing at the right time, doesn't really mean that they have empathy. It could only mean that they are following acceptable and socially desirable protocols of behavior. Sometimes when it's a younger person, it could also mean that they're just doing it because they know they are going to be praised for it, appreciated for it. So we really don't know them. And I would ask you that if your daughter, the young lady of 18, suppose we presume that she does not have empathy and motivation, how significant would that be in the context of how she is now? What would become different just because if we don't know whether she has it or not? She would just be herself, right? Whoever she is, whatever her profile is. And are we not being able to recognize some of her responses and behaviors as coming out of empathy and out of motivation, because it's a different kind of empathy and motivation? Maybe we are not recognizing them. If I took this session in Bengali, I think Bornali would have understood, but I don't know about the others. So when we face something we are not familiar with, we don't recognize it for what it is. We interpret it the way we know things. So the first thing about understanding another person who is a little somewhat different from us is to look for clues. We have to be detectives. Am I reading her right? Am I understanding my child the way my child really is? Okay, Shoma, you're also Bengali. Right. So, yeah. I think for your young lady, firstly, the dignity of her being a young lady of 18 and not a baby, not a child. Sometimes, many times, parents don't grow out of their being parents of little children. So they try to be parents to an 18 or 19, 20-year-old, 17, 16, 15-year-old, the way they were to a 7-year-old. It doesn't work, causes problems. The dignity is impacted. That young person is like, why the hell am I being treated like a baby? So parents have to move on and mature too. So your young lady of 18, in your interactions with her, try to be as consciously aware of her. She's stepped into adulthood. So how would you be with another adult who's a young adult? And you could discuss or model responses and relationships, bonds with her, and tell her that, I think these are just things that I want to talk to you about because you're my daughter and you're the closest person to me. And they are very important. When I was 18, my mother spoke to me about these things, and I just want to talk and just leave it with you that. Uh, and if it is somebody that you want, a kind of a hugging, loving, interactive relationship, and you're not getting it from your daughter, and that is a cause of sadness for you, well, you could tell her that. Not that you're sad, but that is it possible for you to kind of, these are my recognized ways. What are yours? So it all depends also on the level of communication abilities that the young lady has, and her choices, her preferences. Sometimes I had one of my students tell me that he loves me and I should know it because he likes to be in the same room that I am. That's it. And he took it for granted that everybody knows that. And this came after a long, long time of his parents and I trying to teach him to show love. He would talk, but only when necessary. There would be days when he would really not talk, say a few words. And then that day, he told me, we were just doing something, and suddenly from the corner that he was sitting, he said, I love you. I said, wow, really? Show me. He said, I'm in the same room with you. It was like, such shocks. Why didn't it strike me? So we have to be really open to the diversity. Let's not just talk about them as terms, inclusion, diversity, and all. We just keep getting so wrapped up in the talk that we don't live the talk. Diversity, yeah. And that little kid opened me up to so many possibilities. The absolute pleasurable moments I had when some child would just let me feel, a child would feel comfortable just by my presence was a huge reward, because I knew that was that child's expression of deep love. Mine may be giving a tight hug, squeeze, a lot of kisses, smothering a kid, saying I love you millions of times, giving gifts. But everybody is not me. So I think with this young lady, try out different things, but begin on a platform of presumption that she has all the things that you feel she may not have.
Next one is how do we build a growth mindset in a child who seeks perfection or success in the very first attempt while playing, while doing some activity or playing. Any hint of failure results in abandoning the activity and a meltdown. This child is of 7 years of age.
Yeah, let's not call it a meltdown. Let's just say that he's upset with you terribly and upset with himself. He has set his own standards. He's not meeting his standards, and he's just kicking after that. Give him that right. Again, acknowledge, validate. Oh my God, you wanted to build that tower which would like touch the ceiling and it has fallen, and you're so mad at yourself. It happens to all of us. Again, the we comes in. It really does happen. We are not lying. It happens. So firstly, that in case you feel that there might be some direct or indirect comparisons in the environment, school, cousins, siblings, performance expectations, start removing them as consciously as you can. Let there be no performance stress for this little one. Sorry, no comparisons. If it is happening when like you are assigning tasks to the little one, then break down the tasks into steps. So your final thing is a goal to achieve over a period of time. We just do one step at a time. And we don't achieve the whole, and we don't try the whole at the same time. A prep schedule will be very important, preparatory, before starting anything, before he starts off anything, where you anticipate the disappointment and call it a disappointment. It's a very normal, very acceptable emotion. So let's call it what it is. You're going to be. So you prep, okay, you're building the tower of blocks. This is going to happen. I know you're going to use the blue ones first and this, and that's going to go. And then when you put the yellow one on top, it's going to come crashing down. You know, there's something called physics. This is what happens. The bottom is not broad enough. The heavier ones may be on top. Talk about it, anticipate it, and then say, go for it. So the practice of anticipation, it's possible, will help him to not get completely under the control of his disappointment when it hits him, because it's anticipated. It's been talked about. He's been told it is going to happen. It might happen. In a previous question, remember when I said broaden the possibilities for your children. What all can happen, put it to them. And when they say, no, say, it's the way it is. Sorry. You do that every day, all the time. You know, the learning is happening. It's passive. There's thought. There's processing going on. At some point of time, there will be, okay, yeah, she was right. It does happen sometimes. So that's what you do with the little one. And vocabulary matters, parents. So when we want to use terms which are not very nice ones, then the behavior itself and the whatever has caused it also become kind of worse than they really are. So vocabulary matters. Moderate your vocabulary about your children's and yours negative emotions. They are parallel with our so-called positive emotions. We can't wish them away. And they are needed. Balance is needed everywhere. So we need the experience of the negative to understand the value of the positive. So they're going to be there in your kid and you. Acknowledge it. It's there. Name it simply for what it really is. What is this? This is a kid who has not got what he wants. He's like really disappointed and frustrated. That's what he is. He has a right to be. So we help him to understand that you have a right to be, but these are the ways to kind of manage it. And we move on from slowly. Be patient. It's going to take time, but it will happen. Question 8.
Yeah. So this is from a mother of boys aged 13 and 15. She asks how to ensure that the child remembers the cognitive awareness or gyan that she gives to the kids at the time of aggression or dysregulation.
My first point I've written is not possible. When you're dysregulated, when you're angry, you're mad, you're frustrated, you are facing rejection and anything, you cannot remember anything. So not possible. They cannot remember. In calmer times, you have to reiterate those tools. Always keep those whatever calming tools or whatever you have that insight within reach. In calmer times, use role play to model the use of those tools. When neither you nor your children are dysregulated, it's just a normal, okay time. Say, let's do this today. There will be a time when we are going to feel upset. So that's the time we pick up the music and listen to it. So let's do a pretend play, let's do an acting, or let's do a role play. Let's just practice it. It's going to happen, so let's practice it. And most importantly, normalize the negative emotions. Use the we. Reiterate to the children that it is something that is experienced by everybody. Now, since it is something that everybody experiences, let's find ways and means of dealing with it when it happens. It's like if your children, the 13 and the 15 that you speak, if your children, let's say, are they identify their need to go to the toilet when they want to poop, relate to that. What happens when you want to poop? Like you do the thing, no? You go to the toilet and you kind of relieve yourself, wash yourself and come out. So when you're feeling upset and you want to like hit out and all, what to do? Listen to music. So there is a kind of a protocol being set. Practice it, talk about it, bring it out, put it on the table, collaborate. Your children are thinking, intelligent individuals. Treat them with dignity and give them the time that they need, because they are of a different neuro profile, to process all this, to accept it or reject it, to follow your instructions, to show evidence that they are following it. Give them time, but you do your end of it. There's a question from Vanya. Can we place, sorry, what's the question? Wait, let me just.
Shall I read it out? Can you place
Yeah,
the
yeah.
headphones or chewy tube on the table and model during the storm? Can it be effective then?
Yeah, most absolutely. See, if these are things that are a natural part of you and your child's life, they can be there everywhere, all the time. It's like somebody who reads has books all over the place. Somebody who paints has paint everywhere. So it's like the chew tube is used by your kid. Just let it be there. Absolutely fine. That's what. See, when we talk of how can we, make our kids the same as others or normal or whatever it is, the different use that words people use, then whatever is actually familiar with them, which they use every day, needs to be everywhere. It just needs to be there and picked up and used just like we would use anything else. Right? So yeah, please, Vanya, please go ahead, put it. And always give time to something. Always prep the child. Always talk about it. Go home and tell children today, oh, no, we had this auntie talking about these things today. And I thought that, okay, maybe in our house we could also. Let's do it over a period of time. Prep, because actually none of us like something just thrust on us. Suddenly we make a decision. From today, we'll go to the OT. You grab your kid's hand, you go to the OT, you shove him inside the room. He's like, what the hell is happening to me? And then he may not even need what's going on over there. He cannot relate to it. Jump up and down, do this. Some kid needs it, not everybody. Some kid relates to it, not everybody. It's torture. So no thrusting, no sudden decisions, and we need to prep children. So do that, normalize the emotions. Do not expect anything to happen when the storm is on. Let the storm pass. Okay, then we have the 9th question.
Yeah, this is from a parent of a 29-year-old person. How to help regulate their emotions and help them to be a confident young adult.
Okay. Where do you think confidence comes from? In anybody. It comes from a sense of self-esteem, that I can hold my own in this situation. There are no doubts, no uncertainties. In a person who has grown now to the age of 29 with multiple experiences of the contrary, where the world around has repeatedly told this young person in many ways that you cannot hold your own. You don't know this. You can't even try this. You're not up to it. Where will the confidence come from? Confidence has to be built in your young person. First is allow the expressions. If your young one is on the ASD profile, does he or she know it? Is there any relating of the self to the ASD profile? Is there advocacy at home? You have to think of all these before you move on to facilitating confidence in your young person. It is first the comfort of the neurodiversity. From the comfort will come heightened self-esteem. From heightened self-esteem, there will come levels of confidence. So we begin with the task of helping the young person to understand their profile, who they are, why certain things are different for them as compared to what they may be seeing around them. And I think I have always kind of been rewarded when I have spoken the truth with my children and parents, that, you know, we can tell them about diversity and the rights and what is just, but we also need to tell them of what generally goes on in the world. And we tell them it's not correct, it's not fair, it's not right. And but this world is just too big and there is too many people and it's too complex for us to change everybody and everything. Let's start. We can do it at home. We can maybe do it with our relatives, with our neighbors to some extent. But we should also just reject people and situations and circumstances that we don't like. We don't have to feel, and this is more for the parents of younger children because they make the decisions on behalf of the children. So we have to be extremely observant of situations where our children are very uncomfortable. Find out about the relevance of that activity. Is it really going to lead to what you think it's going to lead to? And if you have doubts, take the child away. So that builds confidence. You know, we cannot have a lifetime of imposing on our children, although we do it with the best of intentions. We are parents. Who loves our children more than us? But that very fact creates lack of self-confidence. If my own mother doesn't know that I just don't want this or I'm not benefiting from this. So build confidence slowly. Before that, all of you here, if there's anything I've said that makes you feel that you might want to take it forward or whatever, please feel free to call me, get in touch with me. If you're Bangaloreans, come over. Because it's just not a 1 hour, 2 hour thing, you know, it's a life of our children. I'm not going to be able to do justice to any of your children here through just this session. So take it forward whatever way you want. Okay, the 10th question.
So my son spells, types, and writes to communicate. He's able to learn academics well with logic and reasoning. However, he screams, cries, claps aloud when he does not have it his way, like he does not get TV or phone, his favorite snack, etc. It seems like he's a different child in such situations, unable to reason nor communicate effectively. How can I help him regulate and calm himself in such cases? It gets very difficult to manage these outbursts when they happen in public places. This child is 9 years old.
Interesting child, very intelligent. This kid has learned the basic rule of life. I do something unpleasant, I eat the bitter, God first, I get the petha later. So I get a sense from your little one's description that he's kind of figured it out that there are some unpleasant and idiotic things like writing, reading and all, which have absolutely no sense, no meaning. But I just got to get through them to get to the more meaningful things like watching TV or things like that. So he has his own set of things that matter and things that don't matter. Unfortunately for you parents, they are opposites. Things that matter to you don't matter to him at all. Things that don't matter to you matter a lot to him. So when you take off the things or tell him no to the things that matter to him, what can you expect? A storm. Right. So for those who still have to begin this journey of academic or whatever learning, please do not reward your children with other things. Do not make that into a protocol. Because it causes this distinction of if I do this, I get that. And I will not do this if I don't get that. One of the reasons why we have come across a lot of feedback about the behavior therapies that have not worked. The reward and punishment system doesn't really work in the way that we feel it will. It doesn't. So now that he's kind of already started on this journey, it'll take you a little time for him to unlearn this connection. You'll have to go about it in a long phased out manner. Start by scheduling his activities, which means that you are giving equal importance to everything. Nothing is more or less. Do not create connections of reward and punishment between any activity at all. So right from pooping to taking a bath to wearing the pajamas, brushing, going to school or whatever it is, academic study time, reading time, play time, TV time, it's all in the same breath, same neutral thing. It's all times. And our day is divided into times, and we need to do this, this, this. And like I said again, offer the slashes even within these times. So if it is fruit time, it can be also snack time. It can also be juice time. It can be, So what are the different possibilities of that time? So a TV time can also be device time. It can also be game time. It can also be typing time. It's the use of a device. So it's slashes, slashes, slashes. And the scheduling, you have to prep your child. You have to tell him that the scheduling is for practical purposes so that we don't get diverted and we don't kind of, end up not doing something which is as important as the next thing. So we'll just break it up into the schedule. And the other possibility is to not have the same thing at the same time every day. So that except for sleep time or food time and all those which need to be within a span of time. But other things like reading can be different at a different time, writing can be a different time. You can split them up. And the TV can be, if it's a child being homeschooled, then you have all the time in the world to kind of, so it is to offer possibilities that this is how it happens. And do not expect changes immediately. The resistance will be there. And a bigger, more philosophical question here for you would be that the things which he has picked up procedurally, unless you make them meaningful, like the reading, writing activities, my sense is that he will stop doing them altogether soon. He's still at an age where it has not struck him that he can get away from that. It will soon strike him. He's an intelligent young fellow, and he's going to stop doing it. So when we start off with anything that we understand as academic, we have to make it meaningful in the sense that my child has to relate to it. And sometimes there is no relating. I have children from mainstream schools or whatever, they come and say, ma'am, why are we reading about history and all? What is the context? And sometimes I tell them, systems have evolved. We are all little cogs in the wheel. It takes too much time and effort to kind of go into do it and get on. Let's not give it too much time. So sometimes it works that way also with children. Like, let's, whatever time we are going to spend in discussion and fighting it out, let's do something more interesting in that time. This has to be done, finish it and get on with it. So use different strategies with your children when you are asking them for sitting down activities, like, things like sit down and do this, and make it relatable to that little one. You know your little one. Without trying to change him or her, make it relatable. And sometimes if it's not relatable, okay, fine. It's part of the system. We'll do it for a while and then we'll move on. So for this little boy, scheduling, keeping possibilities open in the schedule, putting everything on a very neutral, same importance line, no rewards, no punishments connected between activities. If you don't do this, you don't get that, nothing like that. And the things that he is doing out of kind of a practice, try to make it related to life. Like, you wrote that thing over there, you wrote zebra, and then, then we saw that movie and there was that. So we know it's the same animal and something like that. That is whatever he enjoys, whatever level he responds to. Let's do that. Okay. I think we have some more questions in the chat.
Yes.
Why are you angry? Are you angry with Papa?
Can we go to the questions in the document, ma'am?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Yeah, so there are a couple of questions about repetitive behaviors. So the first one is how to control and stop repetitive behaviors and lead to emotional outbursts which are harmful to self and to others.
Yeah. Okay, repetition is a very interesting characteristic in many children on the spectrum, and others, and ID also, and some others. So one thing is that, if we see repetition of something as a kind of an obsession with it, then obsessions get more obsessive when they are countered. You try to stop a repetition, it'll get more repetitive. Probably the context here is many times repetition happens because the child is seeking assurance. There is high anxiety. The high anxiety causes the presence of cortisol, which is a distraction for the mind and the brain, which impacts the memory. The child actually forgets that this has already been talked about. He gets anxious about it again and asks again. It is a horrible, vicious cycle. And then when we counter it, or when we say you just were told, or no, it's not important, why do you keep talking about the same thing? The anxiety is getting a fillip, it's going higher and higher, nobody's understanding me, I'm going to die, something's going to happen. No, tell me, why? The repetition comes and we have already entered the storm. So repetition has to be dealt with the understanding that my child is seeking assurance and needs this repeated assurance. Now, if I'm not going to be able to just say it 1,000 times, then I could write it out, I could show it, I could have a color coding, I could have a pat on the back and say, yeah, I could have gestures. I could find a whole lot of alternatives to just saying the same thing or showing the same thing. But always believe that the context is genuine and relevant to your child. He or she is not simply repeating for the joy of it. He or she needs to do it. My job is to find out how to reduce the need. If I am able to crack that and the need reduces, the behavior will moderate itself. How do I crack it? First two mantras remain the same. You validate, you acknowledge. I know you need to know this again and again. And it is a little difficult for me. I have so many things to do. And okay, I'm going to show you this yes card every time. or this, whatever, some words, some gestures, it means, yeah, it's happening. Or yes, write out the answer, draw out the answer to whatever the repetitive question is. In some other situations, it is the communication deficit. The question is being repeated not because the child is seeking an answer to the same question. The child does not know how to take the conversation further and ends up repeating the question. You have to discern the situation. If you can't, tell your child that, is it this? Mummy is trying to understand. So we had an apple for breakfast, and you're saying apples grow on trees. And why do apples grow on trees? Why do apples grow on, why do apples grow on trees? Is it that you're trying to say what kind of trees? Where are these trees found? And can we have an apple tree in our garden? Is it maybe you're trying to talk about the apple? So yeah, maybe we can talk about it. I mean, while you do your running around or jumping on the trampoline, I'm going to have this video of the apple trees growing in Kashmir. And so maybe you want to know more about apples. So go by trying to detect. So repetition, like I said, also happens when the child does not know how the conversation moves. So they fixate on the words that have already been articulated in the hope of getting a different response every time. But we end up giving them the same response, and they just say, what moron is this? I'm asking something else, and my mother is saying the same thing again and again, because the child is not really cognitively aware that he or she is also saying the same thing again and again. It can be very funny, actually. Let's look at the side, the humor in our lives. It's there. We don't see it. So try these different things for repetitive behaviors, okay? But one thing do not do. Do not think of that behavior as something difficult or bad. It's not. Okay, next one in the repetitives, question 2.
Yeah, how to improve focus. So the child repeatedly thinks about one aspect and asks questions related to that topic, which is limiting his observing and learning skills. He's overthinking so much that sometimes he forgets daily related activities like washing hands properly after eating, washing hands after washroom, object names, etc. This child is 11 years old.
So you can all connect to the limbic system here that is working over time. This is indicative of a child with very high anxiety. So cortisol levels are high. They are impacting his memory, a system where even things like washing hands and all are not registering. I am not aware of the situation of your child and what is causing the anxiety. Some of the anxiety is part and parcel of the profile of ASD and many other people with diversity, because of the very sense of the difference. Each and every one of our children and our family members who are different are aware that they are different. Now, the problem arises is when this awareness causes fear and anxiety because of their experiences. They have faced difficulties. And that anxiety grows and grows and grows because now there is communication deficit and we are not able to explain to my parents that what's going on and why am I different? How am I different? How can I be not like this, or etc., etc., etc. As this anxiety builds up, the child becomes obsessed with one line of thought, latches onto it. It's almost like an escapism also. So it's very important that we normalize our responses with such a child. As in, we say that, yes, I see that you are going through a lot of worry about something. So let's try and address it and see what happens. It happens to all of us. We all go through it in different ways. So your tones have to be very neutral. There have to be repeated assurances. You have to find ways of responding to the iterative, question in ways that bring in platforms of alternatives. That, okay, I'm going to talk to you about this again, but this time I'm going to show you a picture. It means the same thing. And while you're thinking about this, it's okay. Let's keep the thought and, do this for 2 minutes, for 1 minute. Let's kind of do some kind of whatever it is that the child and you do together. It could be building activities, it could be reading, writing, it could be listening to music, dancing, gymnastics, trampoline, it could be climbing, going for a walk, gardening, cooking, laying plates, setting the table for dinner. It just could be anything that we do, 1,000 things that we do in life. So while we are doing it, we also say, okay, let's do this for a minute and not think of that for a minute, and then we'll go back to thinking about it or talking about it. So we don't deny the child the response that the child is seeking to that one particular line of thought. But at the same time, while responding to it, we also say, just for 2 minutes, I'm going to do this, and then we'll go back to that. So you bring in these breaks in that child's line of thought in a deliberate manner. Just that break of 1 second actually helps the hormones to subside. So every time you're bringing in a break in the repetitive pattern, it may be just 30 seconds, but it makes a difference to the hormone levels and to the brain's need to produce more of those hormones. So you make that into a practice. The brain gets the message that I don't really need to produce so many of those fighting hormones every time I'm getting triggered. It's a false alarm. The brain can get that message. So we make it a false alarm by breaking it. Just 30 seconds, just 30 seconds. Yeah, that thing is, let's water this plant. Just let's put 1 glass of water. Come on, you take the water, put it with me. Okay, now let's sit down and talk about it. Then, we need to, chop up the cucumber for lunch, for salad. Let's do that. Half a cucumber so whatever it is, you and your child can do together. Please do that. This little one definitely needs his stress levels to be reduced and his anxiety to be reduced. Okay, we move on to the next section, communication.
Ma'am, we have 3-4 questions on communication, most of them pointing at the same thing. So can I just combine that and ask you in one? Yeah. So most of the parents are asking about how to make communication beyond need-based. So how can we help the child express their emotions or discomfort related to medical issues when they go see a doctor? So how can they express pain or discomfort and not cry instead of that? So how to build this communication is the question.
Yeah. Okay, for the first one, I felt that the child is also very young, and while there are many children who will pick up a label or pick up a word, like red is red, and in an emoji, they will say happy face, sad face. It is procedural. There is absolutely no cognitive processing of what that really means. So and especially to self. So probably this little child does not relate self to those labels of happy, sad, or whatever. So what we need to do for all the children here, for all these questions, is to use life experiences to name the emotion. And so that we also bring in a very wide, repertoire of emotions and labels. Start off with the basic ones and happy, sad, angry, tired, hungry. We don't bring those in at all. The moment a child cries, it's like sad or angry. Why? The child could be hungry or tired, right? So bring in those possibilities. They are different from being sad. They're different from being angry. So use life experiences to name the possible emotions that the child has. And again, back to do not expect any communication during times of dysregulation. Wait for the storm to pass on. Tell the child you're there in ways that your child prefers. You already know what your child prefers. So do not impose your presence. But if your child wants you to be present, wants to cling on to you, give him a tight hug and ground him or hold him down or whatever it is. So no expectation during dysregulation. It will pass. We will get back to it. There's all the time in the world, but that's not the time to ask your child to be intelligent and communicative. He or she is extremely upset. There's no way that he has that one little brain. Okay, now that entire brain is consumed with the upset thing. There's no space in the brain for anything else. Let the spaces happen. The second one, I think modeling might work a lot for your child. So there's, conversation, story modelings, and also before all of that, uh, do acknowledge if the child has any, preferences, like you offer the options. We have to be able to understand that many of our children, not all, many of our children prefer the non-communication approach, as in prefer need-based communication. It is what it is. But we can offer the options from early childhood. We can say, you seem to be a person who wants to communicate as per your requirements. That's fine. Please do that. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. I'm your mama, or I'm your appa, or your tata, or whatever. I like to talk to you sometimes. That is how it is between people. So I'm going to maybe tell you a story, just 2 lines, and then I'll feel really, really good about it. So you offer options that people do talk without really needing to talk. And over a period of time, you'll know very clearly whether that option has been accepted or has been rejected by your child. And then you will have to accept the child's preference. If it is accepted, and your child will 100% give you indications that I need more support in this. So help me to make more friends. And when it comes to, making more friends, again, the graded phase manner works, one at a time. Be choosy, be selective, be collaborative with your extended family, with your friends, neighbors, and bring a family on board, bring that child on board, start off with one, and then slowly, slowly move on to maybe others, if that is what your child indicates. Not because you're the mother and you really want your kid to go out and play with other children, because the world has taught you that it's important for children to play with other children. Oh, well, for some, yes, not for all. So yeah, then the third one, I have written that what you want is a long process. The child cries. And so what you need to do is you need to take your chances at identifying the causes and then create the communication process. You could use cards, pictures, type words out. And so let's say you identify once that your child is crying because she's really hungry. So you say you're hungry, you want food, it's time to eat. You have cards, pictures, actual things. And the next time, again, you know that your child is crying because she's hungry. You relate to those cards. Oh, this is what's happening. You're hungry. Come, let's eat food. So every time you identify the cause of the crying, you make a card for it, you make a picture for it, you have a word for it, and you provide that. Over a period of time, your child is going to start associating, relating those communication tools with her experience, and we may expect that she will pick up the tools. But at least give her the means, start off, help her to relate first. And then expressive communication, it again depends on your child's comfort with expressive communication. Be very sure that is what he wants or she wants and not what you want for your child. If you are sure that, there are indications. If you're very sure that your kid really wants to go out and be there with some other kids, start slow, like I said. If it's a non-speaking child with vocal articulations, give words to those articulations. I have constant conversations with my children when we are reading or talking and all. And I tell them also, Babu, I may go absolutely wrong with what you're trying to say, but I'm going to try and guess to the best of my ability. And I think this is what you're saying. So give words to the child's articulation. And one thing is very important when we are working or we are nurturing children who are not using word communication is not to ask questions. Because, or ask questions that the child knows how to respond to. Because the moment we ask a question which the child has no way of responding to in ways that we identify, you're actually telling the child that you can't communicate. So don't do that. If your child nods, if your child points, if your child pulls you by the hand, if your child gestures, types out, uses avas, ask questions. And they say, yeah, tell me, show me. But if all that is not yet happening, do not ask questions. That's the worst thing to do to a person who has no means of getting back to you with the answer. So be very, very conscious about that. You can tell your child that, we are looking at this picture and I can see and, something here, or this is what it says. Do you remember that time? Connect, relate. But do you remember? Can you visualize? Can you think about it? The child does all of that. When you say, can you think about it? Child is actually thinking about it. But can you tell me about it? Child still doesn't have means. It's work in progress. You'll probably end up, trying different things, and you will end up creating a communication system for your child. But while it has not started, no questions. So that's how we also develop, going back to the confidence and everything. It's all interrelated, That's how we develop self-esteem, confidence. Okay. The next is about emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So this parent asks, how is emotional intelligence different from metacognition?
So very common definitions out there. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. So I make a decision, I analyze something, and then I think about it, I rationalize it. That is metacognition. Emotional intelligence, how we started off with identify, we acknowledge, we understand, we address, and we manage emotions. Two different things, actually, because metacognition is definitely a cognitive activity. Emotional intelligence is the limbic system in conjunction with language and speech and communication expression. So two different systems in the body. But metacognition or cognition comes into it later, in the later stages of emotional intelligence, is when we learn how to manage and address emotions. So that is where the cognitive abilities make a difference, because it is about analysis. So while the hormones do their job, the glands do their job in response to situations, external and internal. Now the cognitive part takes up the presence of those hormones and decides if it's needed or it's not needed. If it is overwhelmed by the presence of the hormones, the cognitive system shuts down and we are left only with the limbic system, which is what happens when the storm, when the meltdown happens, when the tantrum happens. Cognitive system has taken a break, which is why we cannot do anything during that time, except physical removal, holding, safety things. It's all connected. Okay, next question.
So the next one is how to use emotional intelligence to develop perspective and understand others' viewpoint.
Not always possible. If I do very good work from my perspective and my boss says, what trash is this? I will never understand why my boss said that. And even if I do, I will not acknowledge it. So it's not always possible to understand the other's perspective. But it is an interesting and probably important aspect of our lives. So like with the other things, when we are doing things with our children, we state the presence of diversity in this world, within ourselves, in the family, in the way we dress, the seasons. how we do different things for different seasons. So just this concept of diversity, difference, should be a natural part of our everyday interactions with our children. And that builds the foundation or the platform whereby you can maybe subsequently take it to specifics of understanding the other's point of view. But that will happen later. You need to have the prep stage. You need to have the child, being familiar with the presence of difference. You have to understand that just as all of us may be not able to understand our kids all the time, our kids are not able to understand us all the time. Absolutely, they're clueless. Like one of my kids told me, why do you mix the dal and the rice? It's horrible. Because for him, dal was separate, rice was separate, and that's how rice and dal is had. It's like that. And I said, you and I are different. He said, you're a bad different. I said, accepted. And he said, I'm a good different. I said, accepted. You are a good different, but we are different. And then he noticed that most people are bad different because they mix dal and rice. I said, I'm sorry, but yeah, there are many bad difference in this world. So, you bring it into the real life of a child. That is like, oh, it's not all, everybody is not like the way I am. Our kids don't know that. And that's why they get so irritated with us. We are morons for them. Why the hell is she not getting it? Like, that's the conversation in a child's head all the time. Because for our children, the whole world is the way they are. They're supposed to be. Why the hell are we different? So we need to bring this in everyday life. Look at the park. Look, that little boy is running so fast. But look at Tata, that Tata kind of person, like walking slow. That's the age difference. How the muscles, and you can have a nice little class on anatomy over there and energy levels and all in the park itself. So it's very important to bring in the presence of difference. So once that happens, then like I said, you can try to relate it to specifics, and there will be some progress, definitely. Third one.
The parent says, I'm not able to understand how emotionally intelligent my child is.
Oh, well, it's difficult to understand because we all have our own definitions of emotional intelligence. So I think first you have to define it for yourself. If you want to read emotional intelligence in some person, then what are the parameters? And then you see where your kid comes, and you also question yourself if those parameters that you have decided are relevant to your child's neuroprofile or not. How relevant are they? Because like I said, it is different for different neuroprofiles. And, you need to presume competence here, that emotional intelligence is definitely there. It just might be in a very different form from what you are used to. So for your ease of mind, you need to first get clarity on what is your expectation from your child by way of he or she exhibiting that they have emotional intelligence. What is your expectation? And then take it further from there. We can always talk much more about this. It's a very interesting question. So we can talk about this because it can really make a lot of difference to the quality of relationship between parent and child. So, yeah, please. I would be very grateful to this particular parent if we kind of reached out to each other and we took this forward. Okay. And the fourth question.
How to teach kids about emotions and what behavior is expected when a person is sad, angry, etc.
I think there's nothing fixed over here. Exposure is important. Like I said, all learning comes from, having experienced things. Exposure through different medium, pictures, stories, actual relate to, and more, the more you relate to a child's experiences, their lived experiences, the easier it will be for the child to join the dots. and be patient, of course. And sometimes it's too early. It's just the beginning of life for a child. So we wait for things to happen as life moves on and build a very, very wide platform of these experience and talking about them, connecting, relating. So it's all about providing. Facilitating is all about giving without expectation of return. Because the returns are all coming, but we don't recognize them because we have fixed ideas of what the return should be like. So once it doesn't come in that way, there's this little one who's just come into my Kunj family very recently, Bengali. But on the very first day, parents told me he doesn't understand Bengali at all. I mean, he uses English and all that. So I said, okay, could be. And all. Then a few days into the thing, I just told him in Bengali, he likes to have things in his hand. So he picks up some stuff and he's with them all the time in his hand. So we wanted to wash hands. I wanted to set the protocol of washing hands before a meal. So just habit, and I told him in Bengali, "Tomar khelnagulo ekhane rekhe dao. Keep your toys here." He kept them. And I just looked at the mother. I said, what? Maybe if I speak Malayalam, he might probably understands that too. But the thing is that we relate to the child's life experiences, we presume competence, and we keep in mind the diversity of our child and then build everything on that. So it takes time. Be patient. Next is acceptance and advocacy.
Yeah. So this is a 7-year-old child. He's grappling with ADHD, learning disability challenges, and taking some antiepileptic drugs. So off late, he has started to observe that his capabilities are much lesser than his peers. So sometimes he says, "I'm dumb," and he says, "Am I a bad boy?" And he asks if he's having bad behavior. So the mother is asking how to help him out with this, how to remind him of his strengths.
Yeah. So firstly, vocabulary, eradicate terms like bad, good, etc. We make it more neutral, desirable, not desirable. It's okay, everything is fine. Every mistake is not a bad. Cut the connection between bad and mistake or error or whatever. An error is an error, a mistake is a mistake, and that's all it is. And it can happen again and again. That is also perfectly possible. So increase these possibilities for this child. Talk of similarities and differences in human beings rather than goods and bads, strengths and weaknesses, because while we may identify something as a strength, as a value, the world may not. So it's not necessary to talk of strengths and weaknesses, but differences, yes. Different people, different things. Some are this, some are like that. There are similarities and there are differences. And because, it's not a hard and fast rule that all of us have something positive and something negative. Most of us have everything that's very neutral. It's not very positive, it's not very negative. And the positive and the negative become so in the context of situations. So they're all relative terms. You can't put a black and white thing on them. Advocacy starts as early as possible. So this child needs affirmation through advocacy from home. That so normalizing, neutralizing, using of terms that the world might use at some point of time, and also the child's right to know who or she is. It's a child's right thing. You have a perfect right to know that I have cerebral palsy. I have a perfect right to know that. Because I'm so confused otherwise. Why do I walk like this? Why do I fall down? Why do I drool? Because you have something called cerebral palsy. Not everybody has it. Why it's such a wide, why did I get it? Well, that's a difficult question for science to answer. We are still reading things up. So you make it like that, factual, very, very factual. And building confidence in a child is actually totally dependent on us, because children respond to who they are based on the way they see us responding to who they are. When we do, oh my God, is this? That is what they think of themselves. If we say, Everybody does it. You also need to do it. That's how they see themselves. So we build that. Examine your responses to your child, examine the way you, treat or whatever, and bring about the modifications needed. Your child will respond to that. And the next
So
one,
I think next one you answered partly already, ma'am. How to
yeah,
make them aware of their neurodiversity and provide a positive emotional health map for their growing up needs for a 15-year-old
one has to
person.
be really, really very factual about everything. Like I said, bring in the neutrality, bring in the fact of it. And you could begin with instances, with little episodes or whatever things, life experiences of the child. The emphasis being on the love and the respect you have for your child and the love and the respect they have for you. It's mutual. It's not conditional. It's not about who my child is and based on that, this is how I feel. No, my child is my child. I love my child. I respect my child. That is what you have to convey to your children. So there's no one way, but being factual, being real about things, accepting and acknowledging the differences in the world, the injustices in the world, reiterating and assuring that I'm with you all the time. And we are going to do this together. And we'll do it in our own ways. Doesn't have to be the way everybody else does it. So all these factors will make a difference. Third one, Bindu, yeah, read the question. Very, very important question.
This is a parent asking help for herself. She says, I'm struggling with anxiety and I can't help but get upset even when minor things are said about my child. So what should I do?
Extremely important. And I'm so grateful to you for having brought this up, because a mother who is anxious and upset and worried will definitely convey all of this to the child. So probably if you could find ways of acknowledging your child's diversity, making practical plans for your child's future, financial plans, care plans, other things going forward, practical to-do lists, do them. Not really like a wish list, but things that you can start doing today and sustain, do it, change, modify, do in the future. Find out more about your child. Find out as much as you can from as credible sources as you can, so that you are able to make a difference between information that is trash and information that is valuable. So find out. The more you understand, the fear of the unknown still rules all of us. We still worship Indra, right? So it started off as rain god because we feared rain and thunder, but Indra is still one of our gods. So the fear of the unknown is still very much there. And when it comes to our tiny ones, it is of course so personal that we are consumed with the fear. So we have to address that fear. And you could be a member of supportive groups where you are more interactive with the other members, and you find the confidence to at least interact and share with some of them, if not all of them, and find time for yourself. Very important. Extremely, extremely important. Go back to your pre-motherhood days, school, college, things that you really like to do. Pick up something that's doable. Do it in parts, small little, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. But you need the endorphins in your system. Yours is a system that has only cortisol and adrenaline. And your heart and liver and spleen are fighting a battle. You need to give them a little bit of dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin to balance them out. And we can't, unfortunately, just do it by smiling. We have these laugh clubs and all, but they don't really help. What you need is an actual moment the brain recognizes as pleasure and triggers the production of these hormones. So you need me time. Just 10 minutes a day, believe me, makes it happen. Embroidery, 2 stitches, coloring, one little part of a page, humming a song, taking a walk, sitting and watching the sky for a while, anything. Find your me time. Extremely important. And we can talk about this. Reach out to me anytime, anywhere you feel like. Okay. The next one.
So the last question in this acceptance and advocacy, how to maintain the dignity of our children while we communicate that they need a few accommodations?
Speak from a rights perspective. You have ASD, you have a right to be allowed to sit in a room with no sound. You have a right. It's yours by right. It is our duty to provide you with that right. Those who don't, off with them. We will not go there. You have a right and your rights need to be protected. Speak from our rights. Everything is a right. Very, very important. Okay, social engagement. Do we all have the patience to sit on? We still have a little more to
we can. I think we can combine them to make them like 3-4 questions. Some of them are repetitive.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just
yes.
I don't know, Bindu, if it's possible for you to kind of share the questions later on or whatever with all the members of this group,
yes,
so that,
I'll do that.
Maybe the responses are not like very specific to a question. They might resonate with a lot of us on a lot of things.
Yes.
So the first question where a parent had asked about how can I help my child, and I picked on the word help. So my response is, does he need help? Sometimes we feel our children need help with certain things, whereas they actually don't. So we need to first determine whether the child wants and needs what we think they want or need. This is about company, about going out and playing. And if we then get convinced that, yeah, this is what my child really is indicating in very different ways, then again, introduce company in a very slow, very phased manner. Start by sensitizing the other child or the parents that you plan to work on with, and little by little, introduce a variety of company to your child. Then about others' emotional context, others' experiences, sometimes, most of the time, the child really actually understands. But it's possible that the child doesn't relate to the context that you're talking about of somebody else. So again, this is again repetitive. Like I said, that we've spoken about this. It's extremely important that we build relating to factors in our children's experiences, so they can join the dots. Because just because my child cries when he's upset does not mean that if I cry, he will know I'm upset. It doesn't follow like that. But it follows when I relate it. When I say, Ankush, you fell down and you got hurt and you cried. It was paining. Mama struck her leg against the table. It was paining. So Mama cried. So we relate, we try to build a bridge between the two experiences. And at some point of time, the dots get joined. So relating is extremely, extremely important. Do not assume that what my child goes through, he or she should understand if some other person is going through the same thing. No, it doesn't happen. Sometimes they relate and then they don't know what to do about it. Because you are mama and I'm child. Yeah, you may be hurting and you may be tired, but I need to sit on your lap. So your mama, you have to make them sit on your lap at that time. And later, when they don't need to sit on your lap, you tell them, Babu, when mama's tired, like we use the word tired, sit next to mama, hold mama, but not sit on my lap. We build from that. The third question, Bindu, is a little different. Can you read it out, please?
Yeah. How to best support the child to independently navigate situations that are socially difficult. Yeah. So the parent says, as the child grows older, a parent cannot intervene or accompany all the time. So how to do it?
So to begin with, you have to standardize responses, as in they have to be the same at home as you want them to be outside the home. For example, if you want the child to go away from something, you have to have that experience at home. Now, this is something you want to go away from it. Please go to the next room. like we go away from it, or we sit down and do more of it if we want. So you standardize responses of yes, no, push, go away, walk away. Right from the beginning, do not intervene. Your kid is in the lift and some other kid has laughed at him, some parent has said some weird thing about it. You behave as if they don't exist. You talk to your child and say, there will be situations like this, which are uncomfortable for us. We don't have to stay there. We're going to stop the lift now and walk out. So you don't really engage with that other party at all. Every other person out there is not open to sensitization. Every other person out there is not open to being educated about diversity. However, if somebody shows curiosity, again, tell the child that auntie needs to know more. She's being nice, but she's asking questions which are uncomfortable. Let me explain to her. And then be factual about you and your child. So you have to do that and not intervene ever. Because the moment you intervene once, it becomes a pattern, and that is the expectation of the child. Your responses to any situation are your child's model. So you determine your responses based on what you want your child to do in the same situation. And the fourth one, literally, the child takes it literally. That's the way language is perceived by many on the spectrum. It is at face value. So
Shall I read the question out, ma'am?
you could.
Yeah. So this is about a young adult, 18 years old. She goes to a regular degree program, currently pursuing BCom. She lacks the age-appropriate skills to talk and be part of the group. So she cries. She's very sensitive and cries often. She can't distinguish between jokes and serious things, takes everything literally.
Yeah. So firstly, I would not say that she lacks. She is who she is. She has a different neuroprofile. She doesn't lack anything. She has what she has as part of her profile, which is to take language literally, which is to feel intensely confused and upset when her cognitive ability tells her that the words are not what they mean, but she doesn't know what they mean because she's on the spectrum. And because she's upset, one of the responses her body has come out with is to cry, and that's why she cries. Tell her that. Do bring in the why in your conversations now. Tell her why people sometimes joke or talk in ways that are like silly or foolish for many of us to understand. That's the way it is. Ask her if she would want to just avoid the situation, just walk away. Ask her if she would want to confront and say, I really don't get it, but it's fine if you want to talk that way. Build her, build her. The more neutral, the more matter of fact, the more, usual, normal your response is, your kid's going to pick up that. The more you make a hue and cry about it, the more you make a big thing about it, your kid's going to feel, oh my God, this is the end of the world. So we said there are people, yeah, they joke. Some people find it's called humor. Read up on humor, tell her what humor is. And this is how some people see things, but not necessarily all of us see it that way. So she reiterate, validate. You feel the way you do because that is who you are, and it's absolutely fine to be that way. It's absolutely fine. The problem is with the world who don't understand you the way you are. Suggest management methods. Like I said, either walking away, confronting, journaling, coming home and sharing, different methods. And for those whose children have still not gone into regular college or might be going soon or whatever it is, prepare them that this will happen. And you will be needing to face. Okay, prep. Okay. The next question, again, it's about, I think, socializing.
Yeah. My son's social interaction. Yeah.
Basically, the social interaction process for many neuroprofiles is very confusing. Very, very confusing. It's a multi-million possibilities. And there are minds that like it like in a kind of a protocol. But when the possibilities, like think of a smile, it just has these shades and hues which are like immense. How do we interpret it? It's so confusing. So again, graded phased manner, talking about it, prepping children that there are differences, things that we are not able to get, don't go in for that. Let's just get out of it. It's not worth it. Trying to, be with that what we are comfortable, be with what you can, and we will build from it. We will move. So again, phase, graded manner of exposure within the family, friends that you can trust, build on that. Yeah, the sixth one is important. The question is important.
How to make him understand that people can express love without touching the body, and how to make the concept, how to help him understand the concept of caring for an 11-year-old boy.
Yeah. So first and foremost, this touching, hugging and all, is it a tactile necessity? Try to determine that. If it is, if you feel it is, and it may be, then tell him that your body likes this touch, but it can come from, and make a list. Mummy, daddy, bhaiya, make a list. Okay. Very few people. It can come from them. Why it can't come from others? There are social rules. There are body boundaries. Talk of a body boundary. It's their body is theirs, our body is ours. And we cannot have the hugging and thing with everyone. This is the list of people that it's okay with because they are near and dear ones. The others are not near and dear ones. Now we can say strangers and all that, it confuses the issue. Near and dear ones, not near and dear ones. Easier to segregate. So body boundaries here. And we want to meet and greet people, model the different ways. A high five, a hello, a nod, whatever your child can get comfortable, pick up, bring in the possibilities, a pat on the back, little fist thing like that. So many ways, bring in all of this. That with the not near and dear ones, we can use all of this. And when we feel like we want to be hugged, go to the near and dear ones. There'll be one of them. So that's how you bring in this difference. It's very, very important. And a lot of times when we see children who kind of relate to hugging and all with love, it is not so much with the emotion, but with the body. They want the touch. They want to feel grounded by that hug. So I have a kid who likes to smell my hair or fiddle with my, I'm in a ponytail when I'm working. So every now and then, so we made a protocol of it. And he's 6, he's going to be 6. So now he's not going and doing it to the hair of every other person because we've created the can do and cannot do. That's it. No reasons behind it. And with Champa aunty, now I'm bringing it, can't do all the time. So I said, okay, we'll take a hair touch break. So we do a hair touch break sometimes during the session. So you phase it slowly, and then the need sometimes goes off or whatever it is. And so while it's there, we cater to it. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Champa ma'am. I think we're done with all the questions from the parents.
That we had in the document, but we had 2 in the message. So self-engagement
Yes.
is one. It's interesting and very important, actually, It has to be practiced from the very beginning. The problem with parenting and schooling children has been that we have always put an agenda to the activities. Now, how do you expect the little brain to make a difference between doing something when told to do something and doing something just for the heck of it? So that is something all of us have to bring into our children's lives. The challenge now is more and more is that things that which we as children or around that generation would do just for the heck of doing have now all come under the category of the stupid therapies. So I remember these kind of blocks and all which I had for my boys. I mean, they were just toys. They could be doing anything they wanted. Sometimes they would just be pushing it around. I don't even know what they did. When one day I found all the toys stuffed with mud from the garden and they were like molding or doing something. And so we created a new game out of those blocks, the building blocks. So we will have to find ways and means as part of the current world to destigmatize things and show our children that while they are used for learning sessions or whatever, they're also just things which can be like used in a million ways. We've done with our reading, writing, we've done our schedule, and it is so your schedule for your child has to have a own time activity label. And in your own time activity label, then you get into a thing with your kid is what is it that you will be doing? Because at this time, mama is going to be doing her own time. So we can be in the same room or whatever, but we are own time. We are not into each other's thing. So this whole concept has to come in slowly. And own time can be anything if it is not something that can cause the child to self-harm, spilling water or messing things up. And you are a mother, father, caregiver, you will have to clean up. That is part of your role. Okay, don't get upset with the cleanup part. I know it adds more to your work, but then you are nurturing a child. So bring in own time choices, empower your child to make own time choices. I have a kid now who I realize needs these very frequent breaks from any devised activities. And so we have called it sitting break. So I had started asking him, and now he has become empowered to ask for it himself. And I always give it to him. Subsequently, I'm going to work on delayed gratification. For now, his need for it is high. So the moment he says, Champanti, sitting break, he has that nice little, this very cute monotone that he talks in. I say, okay. So he has my rocking chair and he'll sit on it. Now I'm going to start delayed gratification soon because he trusts me that I'm going to give it to him. Now I'm going to say 1 minute and slowly help him. So, and then I'm going to say during sitting break, you could be sitting with a book, you could be sitting with, whatever, music and all. So I'm going to give him options for him to build the choice in his head that this is the time I can be doing all these things. And when I give these choices to children, I also bring in everything that we do during the learning sessions. So I say, when you write with Chapanti, it's like study time writing. You can do writing in your own time writing also. Then we have different scribble books, we have writing books. So we differentiate between scribble, both are validated, both are precious for me. I give a star and a wow, wonderful, great work in the scribble book as well as in the writing book. So you have to create those choices for self-engagement. It won't happen on its own. And a lot of times when our child has motor planning difficulties, self-time work just doesn't happen on its own. It has to be facilitated somewhat, cued somewhat. So go with what your child prefers and needs. And the next question for Dhanu, stop all therapies. You can restart whatever when, give it a break. It's evident that your child is perturbed with them. They are not helping in any which way. Try homeschooling. We are a lot of people here, including me, who can guide you, help you, support you. And let's do the best by all our children. Yes. Do we have anything that we have not addressed in the chat?
By Genevieve in the end. She asked, what is the 30-second interrupt while doing an activity or when a meltdown happens? So she could not understand that part.
Oh, okay. I think we were talking about, firstly, if it is a known trigger, then avoid the trigger. If you can anticipate a meltdown or a discomfort level that causes dysregulation, to totally avoid it, move away physically. But the main thing that we spoke about is always wait for it to pass. That is during a high intensity moment of what we call dysregulation. What is actually happening is that the limbic system is on an overdrive, and there are a lot of contrary hormones being produced in the body because the brain is trying to protect all the systems from seizing, and that is not the time that cognition is at its best. So there's actually nothing we can do at that time. So we use the calmer times to talk about the storms, kind of relate them to triggers. If we know what caused it, we say we are going to avoid that at all costs, never let it happen. If we don't know what happened, we'll tell our child that we're still trying to find out what is happening, but I'm there and we are going to write this out. This will happen next time. So anticipate, create. I think that is what probably we were discussing, relating to all this, the topic of dysregulation.
Uh,
Uh,
Actually, you had said about some 30 second, you have to do some activity so that the child gets like you break the activity.
It's like a diversionary tactic. Yes, 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 yes. So that works with some children, because if you immediately take their attention to something that they love doing, for example, that is just that little 30 seconds or maybe a 1 minute of a move away, the mind breaks the chain of that obsessive hooking on to the trigger of the dysregulation, and it provides a huge respite to our internal systems. Yes. So
So
we
that
use
start point before the meltdown is actually going to go to the higher outburst or escalation level, right? Just on the initial stage, not on the level where it has
if
already
it's
gone.
initial and you've been able to anticipate, then you literally remove the child from the trigger. You say, okay, this is coming. We stop it. We don't do this. We don't let it roll on to that. But while she's, the child is already in the throes of, okay, child loves water. Oh my God, it's water play time, and pick up and go to the water play, pour water. And that also may get rejected at that height, but it may get accepted for a while. So if
Okay.
it gets accepted as a diversion, we have offered the system the respite that it needs. So, and if you can bring it at any time. Diversion from before it hits the ceiling is excellent. If you're able to do that, that's fantastic.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you,
There's
Champa
something,
ma'am.
yeah.
It's yeah.
This
One more question is
child,
there?
yeah, it says child can't hear a no when it's related to something she
Okay.
loves, which we already
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
None of us like a
Yeah,
no
we
when we are,
discussed that.
yeah,
Yes.
doing things and all. School where she knows she can have her own way, where teacher doesn't even talk in a firm voice. She doesn't exert authority at home or her therapy places. What can be done? Okay. I don't know if you can create tandem activities. Like tandem means doing what the child wants to do, parallelly doing things what you want the child to do. So I have worked with children who love to watch these music videos. So while the music video is being watched, I do my presentations, and believe me, it all gets in because I get to see evidence of what we were talking about subsequently in other areas, opening a book, going to that page, selecting a particular video. So then I say, okay, today we were talking about, yeah, I know, Bindu, the volcanoes that day, and you're listening to your music. Do you know there are videos on volcano? Kadak, kadak, and 1 minute the video comes out. So you could try tandem activities sometimes with children when they, sometimes, when we see it as things that they love to do, maybe it is things that they need to do. It's a different system. We probably don't understand it. So if it's something they need to do, okay, bring in what we need to do along with that. Might work. Or else scheduling. Scheduling is important for all of us. So we say, no, this is it. And you can change the order and all that. You can tell your child, it doesn't have to be the same order every day. So keep experimenting, always keeping the rights of your child in mind, always keeping the fact that there is a dignity to it. He or she must not feel that he's being ordered and imposed upon. and keep in mind what the neurodiversity really means. So we do not do things with our children that have a goal of making it the same as the others. There's no dignity in that. There's no rights in that. There's no justice in that. It's a different profile. We respect that and we do things accordingly. Yes, 2 hour mark is up and children are getting upset. A lot of things are happening. Mothers have to go feed their kids. So yeah, let's quick feedback from the present participants. Anything that you want to kind of express? I mean, apart from whatever, just something specific that we might take on later on or address, you know. Thanks, Barnali. For me too. Very nice to be with all of you. And yeah, anything else from anyone? Thank you to everybody. And like I said, open, it's absolutely open. If anyone, or also not people who are not present today, they want to reach out separately or through another group, we can always have another group meeting time and again, just to share, just to kind of compare notes, what works, what doesn't work. We can always do
Champa
that.
ma'am, Mary is asking if you have any counseling sessions for young adults, maybe online, because she's in Mumbai.
See, of course, I mean, I talk to all age groups. So if Mary, if you can just call me up and we can have a chat about the requirement, then I will be able to tell you that whether I will be able to contribute to the young ladies' situation. And I guess, yeah, definitely. So counseling
so much,
more in the sense of, yeah, thanks, Mary. You know, trying to understand the young person and then seeing whether we can make life a little more comfortable for them. Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Pragya. I love listening to my own voice. There's no doubt about that. And those of you who are in Bangalore and are able to make it any weekday, Monday to Friday, just come over. My homeschool is at home. But let me know in advance if you're scared of dogs so that I can keep my dogs inside somewhere. Because I have 3 big dogs and one cutie one has also walked into my life now. I'm mother to 4 dogs. It's a very canine life that I'm
Sure.
leading now. More canine than human. So please make it and we can all meet otherwise also.
Sure. Yeah.
You have a very soothing voice,
Thank you so much.
very mesmerizing, soothing voice.
Thank you so
It's
much.
great listening to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You've
Ma'am, I
made
just wanted to ask if you have any formal program as such for building self-regulation and emotional intelligence in kids.
No, ma, there's, you know, why I thought of them for long, many parents had also, but you know, I ended up not doing anything because you cannot standardize anything, is my learning from it. The moment you standardize, it just becomes unfair to some child somewhere. And that has happened with, but I be very happy to be with a parent and a child and understand that child's particular profile, situation, characteristics and everything and devise something, because you can achieve it for every child.
Yeah. Okay.
But there will be small tweaking. So if we standardize it, we don't know how to then, if the parent will be able to tweak it or not, what kind of tweaks are required. So
So how would it work, ma'am? I mean, suppose if I want to engage with you for my
let's
kids.
talk about your concerns, your child, that, you know, I need to understand a lot about who your child is.
True.
And then we'll take it from there. And then we'll kind of, according to the possibilities for you, we'll devise strategies that you then use and we review. We use it for some time. Then we review it and we see something's not working, trash it, something's working, build on it.
Like a home program?
Could be. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we could, I mean, I'm in Bangalore only, so I could come and visit you as well.
Oh, yes, please. Most welcome.
Okay.
Come.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome.
You're so neurodiverse affirming and, you know, listening to you is quite empowering. Thank you.
I think I'm just a nice person, that's all.
No, the way, you say things, it gives us a nice perspective about what might be going on at the other end, which we are not seeing. Right.
Yeah.
So it helps us see what we are not seeing. So thank you for that.
Well, my phone number is there, Shoma. You can just take it and then get in touch with me. So, okay for today?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
And
Thank you
Bindu,
so much. Yeah.
well, anytime. I think we give a break for a few weeks or whatever. There's one thing I want to do from my end for a lot of us is talk about this whole homeschooling thing. The possibilities are endless, and I'm so excited just thinking about many perspectives. If mothers were mostly mothers, because I'm being gender unjust, or whatever it is, but parents are scared of the word schooling, because this has come to me from the queries that come to me about homeschooling. So if we have people who are interested, we can again have a coffee morning and talk about it, and I can share my understanding and learning, and I think we can have lots of home teachers. It's not
Sure,
what
sure.
many of us
Yes.
think it is, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to cater to the needs of hundreds of children. That's what excites me.
Yes, ma'am. Agreed.
Okay, done.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you so
joining.
much. Have a good rest of Sunday and let go, own time, find what things that you like to do, and let your kids be for a while. Let them do what they like to do. Okay.
Have a
So
great day, ma'am.
thank you. So we'll meet soon again, definitely.
Sure, sure. Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, ma'am. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, ma'am.